Imagine yourself riding down the California coastline, and you automatically envision a guy catching a wave with a surfboard at hand, blonde hair falling down his back, all the while completing every sentence with the high-pitched squeals of dude. And California girls with their sun-kissed tans, blonde hair, materialistic, high self-esteem selves strutting down Venice Beach, gossiping about last night in Valspeak. So, does this mean all Californians are, surf dudes and, valley girls? Because that is, so totally not true. Resolve that stereotypes are true. According to the Merriam-Webster Dictionary, stereotype is defined as a standardized mental picture that is held in common by members of a group that represent an oversimplified opinion, prejudice, attitude, or uncritical judgment. True is defined as being in accordance with the actual state of affairs, or a being that which is the case rather than what is manifest or assumed. Wouldn't you say stereotypes are assumptions about certain groups of people, which do not make stereotypes necessarily true? Stereotypes are similar to what scientists call empirical generalizations, and these generalizations are the foundation of scientific theory. The only problem with these two things are they are not always true for all individual cases. They are just generalizations. There are always individual exceptions to stereotypes. For example, men are taller than women, but there are women that are taller than men. These women are the exceptions to the rules, which prove there are always going to be an individual case against each stereotype. However, stereotyping humans can be extremely controversial. The pervasiveness of social stereotypes in our society does more than offend people. It also has observable, often negative impacts on their performance and identification. This is known as a stereotype threat, when one turns a conventional stereotype into a self-fulfilling prophecy. For example, when a blonde girl says something unintelligent, she automatically says how she had a blonde moment. This stereotype is affecting the intellectual performance by placing the individual in a psychological mindset of a disadvantage. Consequently, stereotypes transform assumptions about particular groups of people into realities. On the other hand, some stereotypes may have been shaped upon the kernel of truth, but the majority of them are exaggerated differences amongst groups of people. Many of these stereotypes are based upon social perception and judgments. These perceptions can be flawed, but they help people form personal impressions of others. Everyone's perception is different from others. One may categorize someone as a prep, while the other person categorizes that same person as the annoying peppy cheerleader. With stereotyping, the implicit personality theory is used. If a person is observed to have one particular trait, we automatically assume they possess other traits related to that trait that was observed. These assumptions are what help us categorize people into certain stereotypes. However, many of the stereotypes that still exist today seem to be vestiges of the past, assumptions of outdated belief systems that were once but no longer accepted by social realities. Truth is not the determinant for stereotypes, but rather the certain ideas that benefit certain segments of society. Most importantly, these stereotypes are easily replicated and passed along. Decent amount of stereotypes today are passed down through history from word of mouth, which then sparks like wildfire. This is the reasoning to why stereotypes become natural within the human mind. If you are spoon-fed information from your parents, friends, and media about certain groups of people, naturally you're going to associate them with the stereotype. If you're walking down the streets late at night and you run into a gang of young adults, you know to run and not to trust them. You categorize them mentally as shady and dangerous. You try to avoid them at all costs. However, if you run into a group of elderly people, you categorize them old, innocent, and harmless. These preconceived ideas do not make these stereotypes necessarily true. Just because you are taught to think one way does not mean you cannot determine right from wrong. One can determine a fact as opposed to a generalization, and it is up to the individual on what they choose to believe. Nevertheless, in reality, these preconceived ideas are not true. They are just assumptions. Lastly, I would like to mention an emotion every human being possesses, and that is jealousy. Jealousy makes people do many crazy and questionable things. Jealousy is the emotion that refers to negative thoughts and feelings of insecurity, fear, and anxiety over something. Many humans are naturally jealous of one another, and in order to relieve this emotion, some stereotypes are formed. These stereotypes are usually based upon physical appearance in which many people are envious of. These jealous remarks about certain groups should not classify a stereotype as true. The media does a good job of producing these physical appearance stereotypes, especially among young women. The media has conformed a stereotyped image of a woman as conventionally attractive, thinner, and heavily sexualized. In magazines, more than 70% of editorials focus on beauty and fashion. Meanwhile, 12% talk about school and careers. Girls are surrounded by stereotypes set forth by the media, which displays images of female beauty that are unrealistic and unattainable. This stereotype has a negative impact on female girls due to the socially acceptable look for women that they believe they must fulfill. Overall, stereotypes are not only detrimental to society, but also take away from the individuality of others. Those who carry the preconceived stereotypes upon their shoulders generalize a group as a whole and do not look deeper into the individuals in that specific group. Even though someone may obtain one trait belonging to a certain stereotype, does not mean one can assume that they possess all traits belonging to that particular stereotype. Stereotypes are not only just assumptions and generalizations of different types of people, but are also ways to cope with jealousy in order to make one feel superior over the other. Therefore, stereotypes are not true due to the fact they are based upon assumptions, not real facts. Thank you.